Welcome to Equitable Minds, a monthly podcast focusing on pertinent issues in the U.S. educational system and our society today. We bring to attention concerns in areas such as educational leadership, school and community, innovation in education, research to practice, and social and cultural challenges in schools. We invite experts, educators, and community members to discuss challenges and present solutions. I'm your host, Dr. Floyd Beecham, been a professor of urban school leadership at Lehigh University. Welcome to another episode of Equitable Minds. I'm here with my co-host and graduate student, Yalitza Davis.
Hi.
Today, we welcome our guest, Dr. Tashina Khabbaz. Dr. Khabbaz is a graduate of Lehigh University's Educational Leadership Program, and full disclosure, was my graduate assistant during her time here at Lehigh. We are very, very happy to have her on the show. Today, we will be talking about a non-traditional career pathway for master's and doctoral students in education. Tashina will be sharing with us information about her user experience research and her experiences in the field. Again, welcome, Dr. Khabbaz.
Oh my gosh, this feels so weird. Thank you, Dr. Beecham. It's bringing me back to the moment when I defended and you're like, well, congratulations, Dr. Khabbaz. It feels like full circle in this moment. So it's an honor to be here with you guys today.
Yeah, it's it should always feel like home. And more full disclosure, Tashina was also, again, my graduate assistant, and not too long ago, we started this podcast right here on the campus of Lehigh University. If you look back at some of the older programs, you'll see us in studio. We're kind of in studio again, but now we're in the podcast center right here in Building C on the campus of Lehigh. So, Yalitza, where are we?
Well, we're at the beginning. So how about I start? So can you share with us what user experience research is?
It's a mouthful, isn't it, Yalitza? It's definitely a mouthful. And this is definitely something that, I didn't see myself in at the beginning, the start of my academic journey, but I kind of ventured there. So it can be explained as user experience research or termed as UX research, so a little bit shorter. But essentially, it's being the voice of the user, whether that be a client, customer. So what we do is understand the user's needs through research. So that could be qualitative or quantitative research. And so, for example, if it's a product, we would be exploring, for example, the Apple Watch to improve that experience for the user. Maybe there's something that doesn't make sense or isn't intuitive, or, for example, a television. How can we improve the television to meet the user's needs? Or, for example, the television remote. Maybe certain things aren't making sense. And so, for example, also it could be used for a website, such as a health portal, or within the realm of academia, a student portal, right? We use a student portal, and sometimes it doesn't make sense how to click or navigate through things. So what I would do as a user experience researcher is figure out what are the difficulties that the users are experiencing, and how can I understand the why behind that to better meet their needs, to hopefully at the end of the study, the goal is to improve their experience through research, through an iterative process.
Okay. Wow. I mean, this is very interesting. And you're right, Tashina. When you started on your doctoral journey, this was not the planned course. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about tell us in the audience how you became aware of the field of user experience research.
Yeah, that's a really good question here. So first of all, like you said, it wasn't where I intended to go. And thinking about that through my journey, Dr. Beecham, I think it was your last GA, Gina, she shared a book with you called The Professor is In. And it exposed me to this idea of, you're getting your doctorate, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to stay within academia. And based on, the statistics now, it's much more difficult to get a tenure track position as opposed to, for example, 50 years ago. So at the time I was like, okay, maybe becoming a professor isn't exactly what I should be doing. And then I thought, well, maybe I could do nonprofit work or get some type of government job. But I didn't feel like there was like a clear course of, direction. And I think that was a concern for me. Maybe I didn't voice it, but I was worried about it, to be honest. I remember in one of my classes, Greg was like, what do you want to do after this? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I want to do? I want to get my doctorate. Like, that's what I want to do. So through my journey, I learned about someone who graduated from Lehigh, got her doctorate, and then got a job as a user experience researcher at Facebook. And I was saying, what is this? What is this field? So that's how I became aware of it. And then I started to really explore it more in depth.
Wow. So then what, can you share with us, like, what was your journey? What did you have to do, to get there?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Yalitza. It wasn't necessarily a linear process. I'd say I was in my final year of my doctorate working on my dissertation. And I met up with, I think her name is Ali at Lehigh. She helps to advise with careers. And she said, you should find individuals who are on LinkedIn who have graduated from Lehigh and are in the field of UX research, and just connect with them, network a bit. So I started there. And then I also just kind of did my own exploration, finding individuals who recently got their PhD and got into this field, like within the past year. And through that journey, everyone that I reached out to was willing to meet. They were so kind. They were so helpful. They wanted to support me and give me resources and tools. Like, they didn't hold anything back. And even when it came to, if I was giving a presentation for, an interview or wanting to share my portfolio, they were all so willing. And I thought, wow, I haven't experienced like this much grace and kindness. And if all these people who are responding in this way are that gracious, like, how can this is the right field for me. It felt like, okay, this is the field that I need to be in. And through those connections, I learned, well, it's a lot of like working with other people and working on projects together. And that's what Dr. Beecham and I and you, Yalitza, we all love to interact and engage with others. That's what we were doing here. So I felt like it was the right direction. So that was one of the things that I did. Another is because, we come from academia, it's taking courses. So I went to Coursera and I got a specialization certificate in design, because I knew, I'm like, okay, I know what user experience research is, but what is user experience design? And through taking all those courses, I realized, this is not for me, but at least I understand what the background of what that is, because in this field, you engage a lot with designers. And then looked into different books. Some include The Universal Methods of Design. One that I would really recommend is It's Our Research, talking about how to interact with stakeholders and other individuals, kind of those social skills. And then another book called A More Beautiful Question. And in addition to that, I went on YouTube. So like, it's really like trying to pull out information from different resources. So for example, I followed Aona Talks as well as Kevin Liang. They were really helpful in informing users on how to transition into this field if you have no experience. And then also becoming familiar with tools that people use in the field. So Usability Hub, Dovetail, even Qualtrics, which luckily, we were familiar with. And then through one of those connections, they said, hey, there's a page on Facebook called PhD to UXR. And so it's all these people who are trying to get into the industry. And it was a wonderful experience, because through there, I met weekly with individuals where we started practicing interviews, talking about our experiences. And that was just really helpful kind of through my journey. So those were all like the different tools and things that I used to learn more about it.
That's amazing. As far as you just made a distinction between user experience researcher and designer. Can you share a little bit like what the difference is?
Yeah, so designer is more looking at the design of the platform. So for example, if we're looking at a website, because this is kind of, what our company does, they create the display of the page and the organization. And so using different tools like Figma to focus on the layout, and, try and understand a little bit about the user experience, understand, well, what is visually appealing, where I come in and I say, okay, well, let me take these wireframes or these prototypes, these images that you created for the website, and let me take it to the users and understand how they're interpreting it. How do they make sense of it? Is it intuitive? And then I take those findings back to the designer and say, we need to make improvements. And kind of that's how we interact, or I reach out to the users first and understand, what are your needs? How are your needs not being met? Then based on that, I inform the designers, then they improve it, and so on and so forth. So it's a bit different because I'm not very, savvy in that way of creating designs and things. So it's a little different.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, that, Tashina, that brings up something here. The next question technically is, it's really about how did Lehigh's educational leadership program prepare you for working in the field? Though that question is certainly on the table, but I just thought about the idea of, in your actual job, you just said that you actually go to the user. So how do you use what you learned here in Lehigh's program and, sort of go to that user? What tools, strategies, techniques do you actually use to work with the user?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Dr. B. I feel that a lot of the skills that I learned through Lehigh, through the master's and doctoral program, were just really fundamental and transferable. So learning how to work on multiple projects at a time, being exposed to qualitative and quantitative research. Critical thinking is important, and that's what we learn through our classes, and dialogue, not taking content at face value, thinking at it from different lenses. Also, something that Yalitza, you and I did, and Dr. B and Katia, is working on group projects, working on research studies, which is wonderful, and learning how to collaborate and navigate together, because in this field, we collaborate with the designers, architects, and stakeholders. So that was really helpful and instrumental. And then Dr. B, presenting at conferences. We went to New Orleans, and that was great. And it's interesting because there's a lot of presenting in my field. You conduct a study, and then you share your findings and the impact of, your suggestions to create improvements. And so you have to deliver that information in a digestible way. So like telling the story of what it is to individuals who aren't researchers. So I think presenting at conferences really helped with that. And then our podcast, the podcast helped, even though that's not in direct relation with educational leadership, just, creating questions and learning to have those conversations where it's kind of informal to probe the user or the interviewee a little bit to get more information. That was really helpful. And then I think overarchingly, one of the foundational things that I took away from educational leadership is, as a leader, learning that you have to create a space to support others and help to ensure that other voices are heard and valued. Mm-hmm. And that is really fundamental to what we do, because we help to support the voice of the user and understand what their needs are. Because if we don't do that, then, who's going to do that? So I think those were some of the tools that I took with me and I've been applying.
Oh, those are some just excellent overlaps. And it does me certainly proud to know that, what you learned here is transferable, and it's very similar. Yalitza, here's what I thought about. I thought about maybe on the YouTube page, is it possible to link some of the books?
Yeah, absolutely.
That she mentioned here. And then Tashina, for you, the idea of, that sounds like that would make another great contribution to not only the literature, but to your field, to talk a little bit more about just what you just talked about, the ways in which you can transfer skills from a doctoral program into your particular field. Maybe that's a project we all need to work on. Anyway.
I was thinking about that too, because, as I continue down my journey and get closer to, hopefully closer to, finishing, I'm thinking about, okay, so what are my pathways? Because originally I thought, okay, I'd go do my doctorate and go into higher ed. And now I'm thinking, wow, there's like a whole new world of possibility, different areas that need the skills, people with the skills that we learned in our program. And how can I apply that? So, looking at that in different areas. I've been looking at that in different areas, and it's been really eye-opening.
Yeah, isn't it? It's like there are possibilities. It doesn't have to be like a direct line of action. And I wonder, I think for me, and I'm curious for you as well, Yalitza, I think the pandemic played a role in like having a moment to pause and reflect. I'm curious if that kind of played a role in your pause as well.
I think that, actually our courses have, as I'm learning more and looking at, my husband, he works in education, but corporate side of education. And so looking at people that work for his company that have, doctorates in education, and then looking at, other people that I've known that have graduated like you, who have gone on to non-traditional pathways with our doctorates, right? So I'm looking at that and I'm like, well, what can I do? Do I want to follow a traditional pathway? Do I want to do this? And the nice thing, I think, is that I can have both. That it's not a one or the other, or this or that. It's and. So we're able to operate and be successful and contribute to society in many different spheres with the skills that we've developed in our program. So I didn't, when I came into the program, that's not what I thought, but as I've been in the program and, looked at the skills that I, that I've acquired, we've acquired in the program, and then looking at different areas and different, career options. And it's really about the skills. It's those critical thinking skills, those research skills, those, so looking at that and looking at how to look at complex problems, break them down into simpler problems, and then how to systematically solve for them if they're solvable. Sometimes they're not. Many times they're not, but getting 1 inch closer to that. And so, I think, being in this program actually expanded the possibilities of the types of jobs that I could do. Whereas before, it was very like linear what I thought I'd be doing. So I don't know what I'll be doing, but yeah.
I'm excited for the possibilities to come when you are on this podcast and it's possible for you. I'll be watching.
All right. Awesome.
And also just kind of thinking about that, because thinking about, where does academia begin and then where does it end in relation to UX research? And I just wanted to make a point on that, is that within academia, often, we identify a problem, we research it, explore it, and then provide some solutions. But then where that differs within UX takes it a step further and says, okay, let's implement these solutions and see how does that make a difference? And then how can we study it again, figure out, is it actually making change? And then kind of continuously through that iterative process to make those improvements. So rather than just stopping at, here's the suggestion, we're implementing it and then, trying to validate that.
Yeah. Along those same lines, what advice would you have for someone that might be interested in transitioning from academia into user experience research?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Yalitza. I'd say, and this is what individuals told me as well, it's not a matter of if, It's a matter of when you get the job. So keep trying, keep doing it. It'll take a while. It took me, 4 months. I applied to over 100 jobs. And do what you can to prepare now. So for example, for my dissertation, and Dr. Beecham, you were a witness to this, I use some of the tools that I learned. So for example, Miro. Miro is something that's often used in user experience research when you're doing, design thinks and design sprints and other areas it's used. So I used it in my dissertation to identify the themes within my qualitative study, showing, these are the major themes, these are the quotes. It was nice because, you could have that big screen and zoom in and zoom out. So figuring out little ways that you can integrate it now. And then also, perhaps if you can't figure out ways to integrate it or do studies on the side, there's also options to volunteer with different organizations. So there's one called Hacked for LA and other ones. But also right now, the market has been, hit really hard. There's been a lot of tech layoffs due to, the economy, inflation, higher interest rates, and just the massive hiring during COVID-19. So it may be a little bit difficult now, but I think, within the next few quarters, there will be improvement. So don't give up. It's a matter of if, not when.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. This leads me to, I posed a previous question with regard to, some of your actual techniques, but this question here is, can you share maybe some insider information, not too much on the inside, but some of the research that you're currently working on?
I can indeed. And the most recent one, I think you both would be surprised. It's something that we in the educational leadership program have to do. It's pass or fail. You know what I'm talking about, guys?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Comprehensive exam.
Comprehensive examination.
Oh, yeah, you can't forget about that. So it's like in essence, I had to conduct a literature review. It was the first time that our company did something like this. It was more of like kind of a scrappy effort, not as in-depth. I wasn't given months to do it. I was given about a week and a half. So it was a much shortened time span, but I looked at external research. So, the normal things we look at for a literature review, scholarly articles, peer-reviewed papers, meta-analysis, and found information on the different points we were looking at. And then something that's a little bit different is I also looked at internal sources, meaning studies that have been conducted within our company and blending of the two. So how does the external research and findings inform what we have already done? And then, what are the challenges? And based on that, in what direction can we go to make improvements? So that was very fast, but I was thinking a lot about you all when I was working on it.
So can you share also maybe some of the challenges? Because every type of, every position, every job, every area has challenges. So what are some of the challenges, or maybe one or two?
Or three.
Just a few.
Yeah, it's a learning curve like anything else. It's not academia. It's more of a corporate world. It's a fast-paced environment. So adjusting to that. And then also, as we experience in academia, imposter syndrome, it definitely carried over into my current position, because it's like, you don't know as much about this field, you're learning. I mean, but I think you just second guess yourself. You have the fundamentals, your research. And I think for me, what I had to do is just know that my research or my decisions are informed by what I know, like in relation to qualitative and quantitative research. So anytime I second guess myself, remember that, your research, follow your research, how use that to inform your decisions moving forward. So those were some of the challenges. And, I think the more now I think at 10 months in my current role, and I do feel, pretty competent, which is good. It took some time, but it's just a learning curve, and you'll get to it, and just trust yourself and trust that you know what you're doing, your research.
Thank you.
Yeah, well stated. How about this one? So what's the best part of your job?
Well, I was going to say, I love the people I work with, and I do. And I also, I love you guys, and I miss you. And I think the supportive environment that I had at Lehigh definitely carried over to my current position, because folks are always willing to help. They are wanting to collaborate and just support each other. And also, I think I feel very valued at my company. And that is important because I can also see the impact of my research. I made these suggestions, and now the designers are implementing it and making these changes, which is, really wonderful to see. I'm making change. Things are actually being implemented. And it's also nice because, we have our manager, other researchers, managers and directors and VPs and so on, but I'm able to collaborate with them. We have brainstorming sessions, learning from each other. So even though there's a bit of, a pyramid, it's also, we work on the same level and we have that respect for each other. And I really appreciate that. So it's been really, really wonderful. And, of course, if anyone wants to move into UX, I am here. Give me a holler. But it's been really wonderful. But I do miss you guys, definitely.
Miss you too.
Yeah, definitely. Oh,
definitely
wow.
Miss you too.
And also, as you were sitting there reflecting upon your current role, I'm just so happy that you kind of, you found your own way. You really made your own way, I have to say. Because there were some times we were kind of wondering, okay, what is next? What do I do when I grow up? But for you, for Gina, I think you laid the groundwork for really, really setting your own course. Because even for this field, I had no idea that this existed. But I think the more that you can kind of blaze your own path, and for Yalitza, I was just sitting here thinking that for folks who take this role on, especially as my GA, one of the things we always talk about is, okay, what are we going to do next? Mm-hmm. What can we do differently? What can we do that other people are not doing?
Yeah.
And really just, expand on that is one of our key goals. We do all the traditional stuff, we teach, we research, do service and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, how do we push the envelope a little bit further into just try some new things? Yeah. I think that's going to be one of the ongoing missions of this role, of this, this support role. Plus it's my right hand, this person who's always, closest to me in my research and whatever we have going out of this office. So, I appreciate the both of you.
Well, Dr. Beecham, we have to give credit where credit is due. You
Absolutely.
have to create an environment where you foster support and creativity. And I think that's why your GAs took these, unique roles, because you helped us push the envelope. Even when things weren't clear, we knew that we had to move forward and move even sometimes when we were uncertain, but just kind of keep that hope. So all thanks to you, Dr. Beecham, for helping to hold us and care for us and also let us thrive. So thank you.
And expand our skill set, beyond. Yes. So we're here to learn more about education, but also in the way that you express it, Dr. Beecham, we're expanding how we, share that, how we do that, looking at different ways of reaching students, different ways of reaching not just K-12 students, doctoral students, graduate students. So how do we reach different students? And so, it's been really great. So thank you. Yeah.
Oh, you guys are awesome. All right. So I think that probably does it for this show. Tashina, did you have anything else do you want to add for this particular podcast?
No, but feel free to bring me back anytime. I'm always available for you guys anytime.
Oh, that's so awesome. All right. So with that, I think that's all we have for this episode. If you're watching us for the first time, go ahead and take a look at some of our previous episodes. You will find them on various platforms such as Spotify. I think we're on Google. I think we're on YouTube,
Google Podcast, Apple, Amazon Music, soon to be Apple Podcasts. So yeah.
All right, we are growing. So if you're watching for the first time, go ahead and get the word out. Equitable Minds, a podcast about K-12 education. And I want to go ahead and again thank our guest, Dr. Tashina Khabbaz. We'd like to go ahead and thank Yalitza, my co-host, for this particular show. And again, we are actually recording for the first time here on campus out of Building C in the podcast studio. Is that what we're going to call this?
Yeah, okay. I mean, this is awesome. Yeah.
Yep. So it's been great. So join us next time. And our guest will be, hey, we never tell you that. You'll have to join us and see. For Tashina, for Yalitza, and for myself, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.